Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Mahavarinyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Koratvise Namaha. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Anjalila, Chapter 14, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Feelings of Separation from Krishna. Text 71. As soon as the Lord returned to external consciousness, all his joints contracted and his entire body returned to normal. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has described these pastimes elaborately in his book Gauranga Stava Kalpa Vriksha. In the house of Kashi Mishra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes be greatly aggrieved, feeling separation from Krishna. The joints of his transcendental body would slacken and his arms and legs would become elongated. Rolling on the ground, the Lord would cry out in distress in a faltering voice and weep very sorrowfully. The appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awakening in my heart maddens me. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much astonished to find himself in front of the Simhadwara. He asked Swarup Damodar Goswami, "Where am I? What am I doing here?" Swarup Damodar said, "My dear Lord, please get up. Let us go to your place. There I shall tell you everything that has happened." Thus all the devotees supporting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took him back to his residence. Then they all described to him what had happened. Hearing the descriptions of his condition while he had lain near the Simhadwara, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much astonished. He said, "I do not remember any of these things. All I can remember is that I saw my Krishna, but only for an instant. He appeared before me and then, like lightning, immediately disappeared." Just then everyone heard the blowing of the conch shell at the Jagannath temple. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately took his bath and went to see Lord Jagannath. Thus I have described the uncommon transformations of the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When people hear about this, they are very much astonished. No one witnessed such bodily changes elsewhere, nor has anyone read of them in the revealed scriptures. Yet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the supreme sannyasi, exhibited these ecstatic symptoms. These ecstasies are not described in the Shastras, and they are inconceivable to common men. Therefore, people in general do not believe in them. Raghunath Das Goswami lived continuously with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I am simply recording whatever I have heard from him. Although common men do not believe in these pastimes, I believe in them totally. One day, while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going to the sea to bathe, he suddenly saw a sand dune named Chataka Parvata. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mistook the sand dune for Govardhan Hill and ran toward it. Lord Chaitanya said, "Of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. O my friends, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram as well as their cows and cowherd friends with all kinds of necessities. Water for drinking, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers and vegetables. In this way the hill offers respect to the Lord. Being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, Govardhan Hill appears very jubilant." Reciting this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ran toward the sand dune as fast as the wind. Govinda ran after him, but he could not approach him. First one devotee shouted loudly, and then a tumultuous uproar arose as all the devotees stood up and began to run after the Lord. Swarup Damodar Goswami, Jagadananda Pandit, Gadadhar Pandit, Ramai, Nandai, Shankara Pandit are some of the devotees who ran after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati also went toward the beach, and Bhagavan Acharya, who was lame, followed them very slowly. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was running with the speed of the wind, but he suddenly became stunned in ecstasy and lost all strength to proceed further. The flesh at each of his pores erupted like pimples, and his bodily hairs, standing on end, appeared like gandhava flowers. Blood and perspiration flowed incessantly from every pore of his body, and he could not speak a word, but simply produced a gargling sound within his throat. The Lord's eyes, filled and overwhelmed with unlimited tears, like the Ganges and Yamuna meeting in the sea. His entire body faded to the color of a white conch shell, and then he began to quiver like the waves in the ocean. While quivering in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell down on the ground. Then Govinda approached him. Govinda sprinkled water from a Garanga water pot all over the Lord's body, and then, taking his own outer garment, he began to fan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Swarup Damodar and the other devotees reached the spot and saw the condition of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they began to cry. All 8 kinds of transcendental transformation were visible in the Lord's body. All the devotees were struck with wonder to see such a sight. The devotees loudly chanted the Hare Krishna mantra near Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and washed his body with cold water. After the devotees had been chanting for a long time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly stood up and shouted, Haribol! When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood up, all the Vaishnavas loudly chanted Hari Hari in great jubilation. The auspicious sound filled the air in all directions. Astonished, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood up and began looking here and there, trying to see something, but he could not catch sight of it. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw all the Vaishnavas, he returned to partial external consciousness and spoke to Swarup Damodar. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Who has brought me here from Govardhan Hill? I was seeing Lord Krishna's pastimes, but now I cannot see them. Today I went from here to Govardhan Hill to find out if Krishna was tending his cows there. I saw Lord Krishna climbing Govardhan Hill and playing his flute, surrounded on all sides by grazing cows. Hearing the vibration of Krishna's flute, Srimati Radharani and all her gopi friends came there to meet him. They were all very nicely dressed. When Krishna and Srimati Radharani entered the cave together, the other gopis asked me to pick some flowers. Just then, all of you made a tumultuous sound and carried me from there to this place. Why have you brought me here, causing me unnecessary pain? I have a chance to see Krishna's pastimes, but I could not see them. Saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to weep. When all the Vaishnavas saw the Lord's condition, they also wept. At that time, Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati arrived. Seeing them, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became somewhat respectful. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to complete external consciousness and immediately offered prayers to them. Then these 2 elderly gentlemen both embraced the Lord with loving affection. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Puri Goswami and Brahmananda Bharati, "Why have the two of you come so far?" Puri Goswami replied, "Just to see your dancing." When he heard this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt somewhat ashamed. Then he went to bathe in the sea with all the Vaishnavas. After bathing in the sea, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence with all the devotees. Then they all lunched on the remnants of the food offered to Lord Jagannath. Thus I have described the transcendental ecstatic emotions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even Lord Brahma cannot describe their influence. In this book, Karanga Stava Kalpa Vriksha, Raghunath Das Goswami has very vividly described Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime of running toward the Chakata, Purvata and sand dune. Near Jagannath Puri is a great sand dune known as Chakataka Parvata. Seeing that hill, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Oh, I shall go to the land of Braja to see Govardhan Hill." Then he began running madly toward it, and all the Vaishnavas ran after him. This scene awakens in my heart and maddens me. Who can properly describe all the uncommon pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? They are all simply his play. I have briefly described them just to give an indication of his transcendental pastimes. Nevertheless, anyone who hears this will certainly attain the shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Chapter 15. The Transcendental Madness of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The ocean of ecstatic love for Krishna is very difficult to understand, even for such demigods as Lord Brahma. By enacting his pastime, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu submerged himself in that ocean, and his heart was absorbed in that love. Thus he exhibited in various ways the exalted position of transcendental love for Krishna. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All glories to Lord Nityananda, whose body is always filled with transcendental bliss. All glories to Sri Advaita Acharya, who is very dear to Lord Chaitanya, and all glories to all the devotees of the Lord, headed by Srivas Thakur. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgot himself throughout the entire day and night, being merged in an ocean of ecstatic love for Krishna. Excuse me. The Lord would maintain himself in 3 states of consciousness. Sometimes he merged totally in ecstatic emotion. Sometimes he was in partial external consciousness, and sometimes he was in full external consciousness. Actually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always merged in ecstatic emotion, but just as a potter's wheel turns without the potter's touching it, the Lord's bodily activities, like bathing, going to the temple to see Lord Jagannath, and taking lunch, went on automatically. One day, while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was looking at Lord Jagannath in the temple, Lord Jagannath appeared to be personally Sri Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu realized Lord Jagannath to be Krishna himself, Lord Chaitanya's 5 senses immediately became absorbed in attraction for the 5 attributes of Lord Krishna. Just as in a tug of war, the single mind of Lord Chaitanya was attracted in 5 directions by the 5 transcendental attributes of Lord Krishna. Thus the Lord became unconscious. Just then, the Upala Bhoga ceremony of Lord Jagannath concluded, and the devotees who had accompanied Lord Chaitanya to the temple took him back home. That night, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was attended by Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Roy. Keeping his hands around their necks, the Lord began to lament. When Srimati Radharani was very much agitated due to feeling great separation from Krishna, she spoke a verse to Vishaka, explaining the cause of her great anxiety and restlessness. Reciting that verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed his burning emotions. Then, with great lamentation, he explained the verse to Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Though the hearts of the gopis are like high-standing hills, they are inundated by the waves of the nectarian ocean of Krishna's beauty. His sweet voice enters their ears and gives them transcendental bliss. The touch of his body is cooler than millions and millions of moons together, and the nectar of his bodily fragrance overfloods the entire world. O my dear friend, that Krishna, who is the son of Nanda Maharaj, and whose lips are exactly like nectar, is attracting my 5 senses by force." Lord Sri Krishna's beauty, the sound of his words, and the vibration of his flute, his touch, his fragrance, and the taste of his lips are full of an indescribable sweetness. When all these features attract my 5 senses at once, my senses all ride together on the single horse of my mind, but want to go in 5 different directions. O my dear friend, please hear the cause of my misery. My 5 senses are actually extravagant rogues. They know very well that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they still want to plunder Krishna's property. My mind is just like a single horse being ridden by the 5 senses of perception, excuse me, headed by sight. Each of my senses wants to ride that horse, and thus they pull my mind in 5 directions simultaneously. In what direction will it go? If they all pull at one time, certainly the horse will lose its life. How can I tolerate this atrocity? My dear friend, if you say, just try to control your senses, what shall I say? I cannot become angry at my senses. Is it their fault? Krishna's beauty, sound, touch, fragrance, and taste are by nature extremely attractive. These 5 features are attracting my senses, and each want to drag my mind in a different direction. In this way, the life of my mind is in great danger, just like a horse ridden in 5 directions at once. Thus I am also in danger of dying. The consciousness of each woman within these 3 worlds is certainly like a high hill, but the sweetness of Krishna's beauty is like an ocean. Even a drop of water from that ocean can flood the entire world and submerge all the high hills of consciousness. The sweetness of Krishna's joking words plays indescribable havoc with the hearts of all women. His words bind a woman's ear to the qualities of their sweetness. Thus there is a tug of war, and the life of the ear departs. Krishna's transcendental body is so cool that it cannot be compared even to sandalwood pulp, or to millions upon millions of moons. It expertly attracts the breasts of all women, which resemble high hills. Indeed, the transcendental body of Krishna attracts the minds of all women within the three worlds. The fragrance of Krishna's body is more maddening than the aroma of musk, and it surpasses the fragrance of the bluest lotus flower. It enters the nostrils of all the women of the world, and making a nest there, thus attracts them. Krishna's lips are so sweet when combined with the camphor of his gentle smile that they attract the minds of all women, forcing them to give up all other attractions. If the sweetness of Krishna's smile is unobtainable, great mental difficulties and lamentation result. That sweetness is the only wealth of the gopis of Vrindavan. After speaking in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu caught hold of the necks of Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. Then the Lord said, "My dear friends, please listen to me. What shall I do? Where shall I go? Where can I go to get Krishna? Please, both of you, tell me how I can find him." Excuse me. Thus absorbed in transcendental pain, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lamented day after day in the company of Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Roy. To enhance the ecstatic mood of the Lord, Swarup Damodar Goswami would sing appropriate songs, and Ramananda Roy would recite suitable verses. In this way, they were able to pacify him. The Lord especially liked to hear Bilvamangala Thakur's Krishna Karnamrita, the poetry of Vidyapati, and Sri Gita Govinda by Jayadev Goswami. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt great pleasure in his heart when his associates chanted verses and sang songs from these books. One day, while going to the beach by the sea, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly saw a flower garden. Lord Chaitanya mistook that garden for Vrindavan and very quickly entered it. Absorbed in ecstatic love of Krishna, he wandered throughout the garden searching for him. After Krishna disappeared with Radharani during the rasa dance, the gopis wandered in the forest looking for him. In the same way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wandered in that garden by the sea. Absorbed in the ecstatic mood of the gopis, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wandered here and there. He began to inquire after Krishna by quoting verses to all the trees and creepers. The gopis said, "O Chuta tree, Priyala tree, Panasa, Asana, and Govidara, O Jambu tree, O Arka tree, O Bel, Bakula, and Mango, O Kandamba tree, O Nipa tree, and all other trees living on the bank of the Jamuna, for the welfare of others, please let us know where Krishna has gone. We have lost our minds and are almost dead." O auspicious Tulasi plant, you are very dear to Govinda's lotus feet, and he is very dear to you. Have you seen Krishna walking here, wearing a garland of your leaves, surrounded by a swarm of bumblebees? O plants of malati flowers, malika flowers, yati and utirka flowers, have you seen Krishna passing this way, touching you with his hands to give you pleasure? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, O mango tree, O jackfruit tree, O piyala jambu and govidara trees, you are all inhabitants of a holy place. Therefore kindly act for the welfare of others. Have you seen Krishna coming this way? Kindly tell us which way he has gone and save our lives. When the trees did not reply, the gopis guessed, "Since all of you, these trees, belong to the male class, all of them must be friends of Krishna. Why should the trees tell us where Krishna has gone? Let us rather inquire from the creepers. They are female and are therefore like friends to us. They will certainly tell us where Krishna has gone, since they have seen him personally." Guessing in this way, the gopis inquired from the plants and creepers headed by Tulasi. "O Tulasi, O Malati, O Yuti, Madhavi, and Malika, Krishna is very dear to you, therefore he must have come near you. You are all just like dear friends to us. Kindly tell us which way Krishna has gone and save our lives." When they still received no reply, the gopis thought, "These plants are all Krishna's maidservants, and out of fear they will not speak to us." The gopis then came upon a group of she-deer. Smelling the aroma of Krishna's body and seeing the face of the deer, the gopis inquired from them to ascertain if Krishna was nearby. We stop here, continue tomorrow. Jai Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya-lila chapter 15, The Transcendental Madness of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Silesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Srila Gurudev. Hari Yaraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana Giridhari Gopinath Om Vishnu Patsila Bhakti Nirmala Chaya Maharaj Ki, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Sri Acharya Vrinda Ki, Jai Om Vishnu Patsila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki, Jai Om Vishnu Patsila Bhakti Rakak Sila Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki, Jai Bhagavan Sila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki, Sri Rupa Nuga Gurvarga Ki, Namacharya Sila Haridas Thakur Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, Sabhashada Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki, Sabhashada Sri Mama Prabhu Ki, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki, Tulasi Maharani Ki, Ganga Yamuna Ju Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki, Sri Navadvitam Ki, Sri Mayapadam Ki, Sri Vrindavanam Ki, Sri Purushottamadam Ki, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Ki, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat West London Chapter Ki, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat East London Chapter Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees Ki, all glories to the worldwide devotees Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Gita Gaur Premanande.